This video is for everyone that wants a complete list of mounts you can farm weekly, either in raids or dungeons. I will also go into detail if there is any situation where new players might get stuck or get confused, so people with less experience are also able to get these fancy looking mounts. We will go down the list chronologically so you can easily follow me and not lose track of the expansions we're in right now. I will also always mention if there is any difficulty requirements, so if I don't mention any, there probably isn't one. Starting with the first one is the Onyxian Drake, dropped by Onyxia herself in the Onyxian Lair raid, located right here in the Dustwallow Marsh Zone in Kalimdor. The easiest way as an alliance is to either take the boat to Theramore or teleport there if you're a mage. If you're on Horde, you can just fly down from either Orgrimmar or the Thunderbluff. Nothing special to note here, just walk down the path and at the end you will find Onyxia sleeping in her room. Kill her for a low chance to drop them out. Now, before I continue, I have to note that I won't be going into detail on how to get the Kiraji battle tanks, since they are technically not a weekly farm. You can farm these mounts from the trash mobs before the first boss and constantly reset until you get all 4. If you need more details, you can check out this video I made a while back. Jumping over to TBC, and the first mount we're going to talk about is the Fiery Warhorse from Old Karazhan. Again, nothing special, follow the route I'm taking in the video and kill the Attunement the Huntsman boss for a low chance to drop the mount. Next up is the famous and beautiful Ashes of Valar mount. This is probably one of the most well known and sought after mounts in the history of World of Warcraft, and the way of obtaining this mount couldn't be any easier, honestly. Take the portal from your capital city to Shadrath and fly over to the Netherstorm, specifically to the Eye raid, located in the far east side of the zone. You will need a flying mount to get into the raid, but that shouldn't cause any problems nowadays, honestly. Now, all you have to do is run through the raid, ignore all the other raid bosses, and make your way to Karathar's Sunstrider. Once you attack him, you will trigger a lengthy RP section, and he may sometimes just stand there and do nothing if you kill his adds too fast, but don't worry, after a while he will continue and you will eventually be able to kill him for another low chance to drop the mount. Continuing with the mounts of the Wrath of the Lich King. We're going to talk about the Blue and Azure Drake first, both dropping from the Eye of Eternity raid right here in the Borean Tundra. Once you enter the Nexus area, make sure you take the portal on the highest floor. You can also see the difference in the colors if you look closely, so make sure you take the green portal. Just hit the boss and kill him. That's it. Once killed, you will see a crystal which contains a loot from him, which also has a chance to contain both mounts with a very low drop rate. Next up, the Grand Black War Mammoth, dropped from any of the 5 bosses in the Vault of Archavon raid. The raid entrance is located in the Wintergrass, but the annoying part is that you can only enter the raid if your faction is controlling the zone. So always make sure your faction is controlling the area, or switch to a character that can enter the raid currently. Once inside, just kill all the bosses and every single one of them will have a chance to drop the Mammoth mount. Now, technically these mounts are a 100% drop chance, but I will still put them here in the list since they are so easy to farm, and honestly, I don't want the smoke from some of you people in the comment section. The Black and Twilight Drake are dropped from the Obsidian Sanctum raid, located just below the Wyrmrest temple. The Black Drake drops from 10-man difficulty, while the Twilight Drake drops from the 25-man difficulty. You can enter the raid only once a week, no matter the difficulty, so if you want both mounts in 1 week, you will have to go there on 2 separate characters, otherwise you will just have to wait another week to get the other one. All you have to do is go into the middle, kill the raid boss, just don't touch anything else, especially not these blue drakes surrounding him on top of these cliffs, and that's it. Another very legendary and well-known mount is the steed of the Lich King himself, Invincible. Go to Icecrown Citadel, which is right here on the map, and change your difficulty to 25-man heroic, otherwise you won't get a chance to loot this mount. Just kill boss after boss, and once you've taken the elevator to the upper area after the second boss, go over to the gunship on either the left or the right side of the elevator, depending on your faction of course. Talk to the guys sitting in front of the captain's room and shoot the opposing ship until the boss fight is over. The next confusing part for newer players might be this green dragon right here, since the boss fight is to heal her to full life, but fortunately, if you don't have any way of killing the dragon, for example if you're a warrior, you can just run past the drake and take the elevator downstairs. Once arrived at the end of the raid, kill the Lich King, wait for his 50-minute RP to finish, just to get disappointed for the 22nd week in a row. Mimiron said is the last mod of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, and this one is gonna take you a while, not because it's hard, but because the raid is so incredibly long. The only thing I have to mention is that after defeating the bosses in this circle area right here, they will stand around in the middle. Make sure you don't talk to any of them, otherwise you will remove the chance for the mount to drop. Just walk past them and eventually the last boss, Yogg-Saron, will have a very low drop chance to drop this mount. Moving on to the Cataclysm, the first mount we're going to talk about is the Drake of the South Wind, which drops from the last boss of the Throne of the Four Winds raid. The entrance is on the southern part of Uldum, right here on top of this flying palace. Go in there, kill the bosses surrounding the main boss, and then go ahead and kill Alakir for a chance to drop the mount. And that's it. Now these two mounts are definitely one of the coolest mounts in World of Warcraft, and both of them drop from the same raid. Firelands. The entrance for the raid is in Hyjal right here above the huge pool of lava. You honestly cannot miss it. In order to get the Flametalon of Alyssrazor, all you have to kill is Alyssrazor, but if you want the Pureblood Firehawk, you will have to kill Ragnaros, the final boss of the raid. But in order to get to him, you will first have to kill every other boss in the raid. One of them is kind of hidden if you're a newer player and might cause some problems. So all you have to do to summon Shanox is kill these groups of Nagas running around the whole raid. Pretty hard to miss, so kill them and eventually you will get a notification that the boss spawned. Inside the Dragon Soul raid, you will find 3 different dragon mounts. The first one being the Experiment 12B, which has a chance to drop from Onyxian, and then the Blazing Drake and the Lifebinder's Handmaiden. Both of these mounts drop from the very last boss, the Madness of Deathwing. The Lifebinder mount only drops on heroic mode, while the other 2 drop from any difficulty. So I recommend going into the raid in heroic mode if you don't actually have the Handmaiden mount yet. You will find the entrance to the raid in the Caverns of Time in Tanaris right here in this little crevice inside. If you enjoyed this video until now and you want to see more of these, let me know by hitting the like button. And while you're down there, consider subscribing. It really helps out a lot, and this way I know what you guys want to see. And if you ever change your mind, there's no shame in taking that sub away. Moving on to the Mists of Pandaria expansions, we're first gonna take a look at the world boss mounts. These bosses are spread around the mist zones and give you a chance to drop a mount once a week for each character you have. So basically like a raid boss. Beginning with the first one is the Son of Galleon, which drops from Galleon himself. You can find him in the Valley of the Four Winds right here. If these raid bosses aren't where they're supposed to be, you can just wait around 15 minutes until they spawn again. Next up is the Heavenly Onyx Cloud Serpent, probably the most famous Pandaria mount. This one drops off the Shah of Anger in the Kudlai Summit. But beware, it is very rare. So this one might take you a while. The third world boss is up on the Isle of Giants, north of the main zones of Pandaria, and drops you the Cobalt Primordial Direhorn mount. If you don't have the flight point on the island unlocked, you can just fly there, but don't fly too high up since you get dismounted once you reach the island. Now the last mount you can get from the world bosses in Pandaria is the Thundering Cobalt Cloud Serpent. The world boss for this one you can find on the Isle of Thunder. Unlike the Isle of Giants, you cannot actually fly there, so you will have to take a portal in town-long steps to the island. He's located right here in front of the Throne of Thunder raid. After killing the Cloud Serpent, you can directly make your way into the raid, which also drops 2 mounts. The first one being a spawn of Horridon, another Direhorn mount, I guess. This guy drops from Horridon himself, the second boss of the raid. The other mount is the Clutch of Ji-Kun, which is honestly one of my favorite mounts to this day. And this one drops from Ji-Kun himself, which is one of the later bosses in the raid. There's nothing complicated to explain in these raids, so you can just beeline your way to the bosses for a chance to get these mounts. The next mount we're gonna take a look at is the Astral Cloud Serpent, which drops from the Mokshan Vault raid, which you can find right here in the Kunlai Summit. This very cool and unique mount drops from Elegon on any difficulty and size, so pretty easy to farm. Now strap in folks, cause this last mount will take you around an hour to get. Not because it's difficult to get, but because the RP in this raid is so obnoxious and takes years to complete. I'm talking about the Kor'kron Juggernaut mount, which is a random drop from Garrosh Hellscream in the Siege of Orgrimmar raid. Nothing complicated in the raid going on, besides maybe the Spoils of Pandaria raid boss, which just needs you to jump down on both sides and basically destroy all the crates and whatever spawns out of them in order to basically win the fight. As I said, the most difficult part of the raid is the RP. Moving on to the Warlords of Draenor expansion, we're gonna once again start with the mount that dropped from our world boss. The Solar Spirehawk drops from Rukma, which spawns in the Spires of Arak zone. Now the icon for the world boss will be shown way further south than where he actually spawns. I don't know why Blizzard did it this way, but it is what it is, I guess. The actual spawn for Rukma is right here. If he isn't there, which he probably won't be since he's basically permanently camped by players, you can just wait 15 to 20 minutes until he respawns. This next mount drops from the last boss of the Blackrock Foundry raid in Mythic difficulty only. You will find the entrance for this raid right here in Northern Gorgrond. The structure of the raid might be confusing for most beginner players at first, so I recommend you taking this right path to the bosses, and after the bosses it will get relatively linear. Once you get to the Furnace raid boss, you might get confused. You will probably get confused and get stuck if you don't know what you're doing. The best way I found to clear this boss is to wait on either the right or the left opening of the furnace until one of these engineers with bombs run towards you. Once you kill them, they will drop these bombs for a few seconds and you will be able to pick them up to throw them into the furnace. Just repeat this process until that side is basically dead and complete it on the other side as well. The last mod you can farm weekly in the Warlords of Draenor raids is the Felsteel Annihilator, which drops from the last boss in the Hellfire Citadel raid. Again, make sure that your difficulty is set to Mythic. The entrance is in the middle of the Tanaan jungle zone. Nothing special, just a relatively long raid. Now technically there are 2 mounts in the Return to Karazhan dungeon, but since one requires a little bit of puzzle solving, I recommend you to watch this video, where I go into detail on how to get the Smoldering Ember Wyrm mount. You get this mount in the Mega Dungeon Return to Karazhan. The entrance for that is on that little bridge above the original entrance. Also make sure before entering that you're on Mythic difficulty, as it's only possible to get this mount in the highest difficulty. Once you enter the dungeon, you're on a strict hidden timer of 8 minutes to get your first soul fragment. Follow the way I'm taking and kill the first boss, the Opera. After that, you go this way until you reach this purple floating crystal right here. Click it and you will start channeling a beam, which will absorb the soul fragment. You will notice that you got a buff called Medivh's Echo with a 6-minute duration. Don't let this buff fall off, otherwise you fail this little challenge. Continue onward until you reach this boss right here. Take a left to the room before her arena and you will see the second crystal. Every time you click on a crystal, there will be time added to the buff, so don't stress out too much. Once you got it, go back to this area and jump down to the third boss, Morose. Kill him and behind him you will see the third crystal. Once again, absorb it. Now importantly, don't forget to pick up the keychain that Morose drops once you kill him. You need it to continue in the dungeon. Go through this door and follow me to the spider room, where you will find the fourth crystal. Don't worry, we're almost done with the crystal farming. You will see a portal behind the crystal. Take it and go up this ramp and follow the path until you reach the curator boss. Kill him and beneath his feet you will find the last crystal. You will now notice that the buff you had earlier got removed and you got a new buff called Medivh's Presence. This is where you have to go fast since you only have 5 minutes. Go back to the beginning, so just backtrack and go through the door below the ramp you went up earlier and you will find Medivh. After a little bit of roleplay and dialogue, Nightbane will be summoned. Kill him and if you're lucky enough, you will get the mount. Now, the first 2 Legion raid mounts we're gonna tackle are the Felblaze Infernal and the Hellfire Infernal. These drop from Gul'dan, the last boss of the Nighthawk raid in Suramar. While the Felblaze drops on any difficulty, the Hellfire Infernal only drops on Mythic. I again recommend you going into the raid at Mythic difficulty for a chance to get both mounts at the same time. The most difficult part of this raid is finding the entrance, so make your way where I am on the map and follow the way I'm taking so you don't get lost. Next up is the Abyss Wyrm, which drops from the second boss of the Tomb of Sargeras raid on any difficulty, so go in there in whatever difficulty you like. To find Mistress Sazin, all you have to do is kill the first boss and jump down into the hole he created when he came out of the ground and then just follow the way. The next raid holds 2 mounts we can get, but this one might be the most difficult raid to solo, besides current content raids obviously. I'm talking about the Antoran Charhound and the Shackled Ur'zul mount, which drop from the Antorus raid. You will find the entrance to the raid right here in Argus. To get to Argus, you can take this golden teleport in the Legion Dalaran landing area. The Antoran Charhound drops on any difficulty, but the Ur'zul mount only drops in Mythic difficulty. So again, I recommend you going into the raid in Mythic difficulty. You can quite easily get the Antoran Charhound alone, but if you want to get to the last boss in order to get a chance for the Ur'zul mount, you will probably need a few players to complete this, since the Ionar encounter will need you to basically play tower defense and protect this glowing tree from all the enemies that are spawning spread around the whole arena. And as if that's not enough, you will eventually get a chance to jump up into a spaceship and destroy the spaceship, all while the glowing tree is being swamped by armies of the Legion. So I highly recommend you getting a friend if you're new to the game. Moving to the Battle for Azeroth expansion, we're gonna take a look at Sharkbait. This guy drops from the last boss of the Freehold dungeon, Horridon Suite, in Mythic difficulty. The entrance for the dungeon you will find right here, just south of Borealis. You can actually skip all the previous bosses and run straight to the last boss, so pretty easy to farm. The second dungeon mount will be the Underrot Crog, which drops from the Unbound Abomination boss from the Underrot dungeon in Mythic difficulty. Entrance for the dungeon is right here below this glowing pyramid thingy in Nazmir. The Tombstalker Raptor mount is probably the coolest Raptor mount in the game, and all you have to do for this one is make your way to the King's Rest dungeon and kill the last boss in Mythic. The entrance for that one you will find right here in the outdoor version of the Atal-Dazar dungeon in Zuldazar. The next mount we're gonna look at is the Aerial Unit R21X. This mount has a 20% drop for each member you have in your group, so if you're going in with 4 other friends, the mount will have a 100% chance to drop for one of you guys. You get this mount by completing the hard mode of the Mega Dungeon Operation Mechagon, which is located in Mechagon. You can find the island on the very left side of Kul Tiras. As an alliance, you can just take the portal from Stormwind to Borealis and fly over to the island. As Horde, you will have to take the portal to Zuldasa and complete a few quests on your ship to be able to venture over to Kultiras. In order for you to be able to get this mod, you will have to complete the dungeon on Mythic difficulty in a specific kind of way. So make sure, again, on your portrait to check your difficulty level. Once you head in the dungeon, you will see the HK8 aerial oppression unit flying over one of the 3 initial bosses. You will have to kill the bosses the unit is flying over. So once you kill the first boss, the operation unit will fly over to the next boss. Be careful and make sure you have the debuff indicating that the area around you is being patrolled by the aerial unit. Make sure it's flying around in circles around the boss you need to kill. If you kill any of the bosses without the debuff by accident, you will have to wait a week since Mythic dungeons are on a weekly reset. You may think that the aerial unit is above the boss in the middle, even though it's still making its over to the left or to the right boss. So wait a bit until it goes around in circles over the area. Once you kill the 3 bosses, head over to the 4th boss. Make sure the boss is called Tank Buster MK2 and not MK1. If it's the MK1, you have done something wrong and you're gonna have to wait a week or try on another character again. Now this part is probably the hardest part of the challenge, but it's still fairly doable if you follow what I'm gonna say now. So listen up. Once you kill the Tank Buster, the oppression unit will start casting Annihilation Ray, which is an instant death if it goes off, no matter what level you are and how many defensives you press. If you are in a group of at least 4 people, you can click the glowing pillar and cancel its cast before it goes off. Not possible if you're alone, so don't even try it. But there's actually a glitch or a bug or whatever in the game that allows you to go around this problem. Once you kill the Tank Buster, start running back to the entrance of the dungeon as fast as you can. Doing this on a Druid, I had a lot of time left, but if you play any class that isn't as mobile like a Paladin, this might get problematic. Once you're at the start of the dungeon, wait next to this NPC called Smite's Crackle Key. If you stand any closer to the boss, the ray will probably still hit you, so make sure you're standing behind this guy. Once the cast is done, run back to the boss as fast as you can. If you take too long, it may despawn and you will have to do all of this again. Also make sure you kite the boss back to the arena, since it may reset if it stays outside for too long. Everything you have to do now is click on the pillar I mentioned earlier and deactivate it. When you click it, you will see his blue resource bar. Once it's on 0, you will be able to kill the boss, which also has a chance of dropping another mount, called the Mechagon Peacekeeper. The next boss doesn't have any special requirements, so just kill it. The Pummeler will have a 99% damage reduction buff on him. To remove it, kite him to one of these hammers around the arena and let him get hit by it. The next boss needs you to throw his poop back in the fire, and that's about it.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Click on the Robo Waste on the left side of the arena, and once the oven starts spewing fire, you can kill the boss. That's it. After killing some ads in the next area, you will need to complete a little maze. Just follow how I'm doing in the video and you will be good. Make sure you don't get detected by the bots, and as you can see, the smoke from the vents also hides you from them. Once you're through, kill the boss and continue to the last boss. No special requirements needed. Now, if you did everything right up until now, you will see a red button in front of the boss. All you have to do now is press the button and kill the 2 bosses as fast as you can. And if you're lucky, you will be the proud owner of the aerial unit R21X. Now, the first raid mounts we're gonna take a look at are the G.M.O.D and the Glacial Tidestorm mount from the Battle of the Zaalor raid. The G.M.O.D drops on any difficulty off of High Tinker Mechatorque, but the Tidestorm mount only drops in Mythic off of Jaina herself, the last boss of the raid. The entrance for this raid actually depends on your faction. So if you're Alliance, the entrance will be right here in Borealis, but if you're Horde, the entrance for the raid will be right here, just outside of the Zaalor. The last obtainable raid mount of BFA is the Ny'alotha Allseer, which drops from the very last boss of the Ny'alotha, the Waking City raid on Mythic difficulty. The entrance is right here in Mist of Pandaria in the Valley of Eternal Blossoms. Now this raid is technically possible to solo, but depending on when you're watching this video, it might require you to need pretty good gear to be able to solo this raid. You will need to do a very long and tedious questline in order for you to unlock this raid, so I recommend you to watch a guide on that first to be able to even enter the raid. Moving on to Shadowlands, we're gonna jump straight into the Maw to get us the Hand of Barmethra mount. You get into the Maw by jumping into the middle glowing beam in Oribos. Once you're inside the Maw, open up your map and watch out for a little icon with 2 swords, which indicates that the Tormentors of Torghast event is up. All you have to do now is make your way there and kill the boss of the event for a chance to drop the mount. Moving on to one of the 2 dungeon mounts of Shadowlands, which is Marrowfang, which drops from the last boss of the Necrotic Wake dungeon on Mythic difficulty. The entrance for the dungeon you can find right here in Bastion. The first raid mounts we're gonna talk about are the Sanctum Gloomcharger and Vengeance. These drop from the Sanctum of Domination raid, which you can find right here in the Maw. The Vengeance mount only drops on Mythic difficulty, and for this raid you will probably still need a few people in order to be able to clear the raid on Mythic difficulty since it's relatively new. You get the Sanctum Gloomcharger by killing the 9, and Vengeance drops off of Sylvanas Windrunner, the last boss of the raid. The last dungeon mount is the Cartel Master's Gear Glider, which drops off of the last boss of the Tazavesh Mega Dungeon. We will get to the dungeon by talking to the Flight Master in Oribos, and he will be able to fly you to this little area. I think this spot should be unlocked for every player by now, but I might be mistaken on that one. The only other mount you can farm weekly in the Shadowlands expansion is the Zereth Overseer, which drops off of the Jailer, the last boss in the Sepulchre of the First One's raid in Mythic difficulty. Also, for this raid you will probably need a few people since it will otherwise not be possible to clear. The entrance for that one is in Zereth Mortis, a zone you can enter by taking this portal from Oribos and flying to the east. Moving on to our beloved expansion, Dragonflight. For all of these following mounts you will most likely need a few people, even when you're watching this sometime later in the War Within expansion. Now, these 3 upcoming mounts are technically not separate mounts which go into your collection, but they are still different appearances nonetheless. I'm talking about the Razagath, Sarkareth and Firak appearances. All of these drop off of the last respective boss of each Dragonflight raid, so Vault of the Incarnates, Aberus and Yggdrasil. Firak, the last boss of Yggdrasil, actually has another actual mount that can drop if you kill him in Mythic difficulty. This cool looking fire owl. And this is it for now. I will probably make a part 2 eventually, when there are enough mounts added over the time, but all of these mounts are mounts that can be farmed weekly. If you enjoyed this long and comprehensive video, I would really appreciate a like and if you subscribe to my channel. If you somehow still want to know about more mounts you can get, click on this video right here, where I show you how to get 25 mounts in under an hour. Have fun farming and I wish you all a great day.